Welcome, movie fans. Thank you so much for joining us for episode 81 of Reading Between the Reels. If you're a new listener, we're so glad you found us. And if you've been enjoying the show, please tell someone about us, post on X or Facebook, write a review on your favorite podcast catcher, or just recommend the show to a friend. I'm Craig Dickinson, and I'm joined as always by my co-hosts Corey Heitschmidt, Justin Eldon. What's up, fellas? How we doing?
Catchphrase here.
Oh, no, Corey. I didn't bother looking up a catchphrase because I just assumed you were going to steal mine like you always. Hang on. May the odds ever be in your favor. Boom.
Oh, they were in your favor today.
There we go.
There could be only one.
That's
also true.
Wrong.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
We got a theme going, though. It's really kind of interesting. I was thinking about that, too, because tonight we're talking about the Hunger Games, not Highlander, which we just did. But there also can only be one, so it works out pretty well.
Unless you're in love.
Kind of. That might be true. So anyway, Corey, I'm going to start with you. Overall thoughts on the Hunger Games movie?
All right. Now listen, again, not necessarily my favorite movie. The first time I watched it, I was actually kind of bored in it. I did not fall asleep like I did in Blade Runner. But this movie's a good movie. I think it's one of those movies when I watch later and I kind of sit back and I think about it, I think I realize there was more to the movie than I saw the first time through. It's not a movie you can just watch once. Their whole trilogy, everything they've got going, looking forward to the new one coming out. It's a movie that at first I was kind of thought there was just some atypical roles. When Craig first said, hey, we're going to do the podcast and we're going to do it on a movie about some people, poor people from different districts who have to be forced to fight to the death in combat. I thought, oh, great. Russell Crowe, Gladiator. This is going to be great. But then when I saw this, I was like, okay, it's Hunger Games. So I liked it. It was good. But the thing I have about it, it's a movie where, here's a tweet that I read about this. It's a movie where a woman learns to not hate the players and instead hate the game. And I thought that really does summarize it. Sure. In the beginning, I feel like she hated all the people, everyone and everybody, and she was just aggressive. But then later on, she learns that it's the game she's going after. It's Snow that needs to take down. And there's a lot more to it that I think we'll end up talking about. But I think it's a good plot. It's a good deep story for survival. It's a good definite some fan theory that I delved into that I look at and I realized that made the movie so much better and so much interesting for me after I watched it, to where I said, holy cow, that makes way more sense. And I love this movie. So.
Okay. Looking forward to the fan theory. Justin, what about you?
I overall really enjoyed this film. I don't think I have any major critiques. I don't know that I love the film. Like, it is a movie. It happened. Everything is well done. The acting I thought was fantastic. Some better than others. Great score. Cinematography. I don't feel like they pushed the boundaries with anything there. Nothing too artsy or standoutish. Like, there's a couple things we can talk about later. But I think what this movie really does, and it's hard for movies to do this, is it is both a standalone movie at the same time as launching a trilogy, which gets pretty difficult. And Into the Spider-Verse, I think, did that incredibly well as well. It's the second one of this trilogy that kind of falls short of that a little bit. It's no longer a standalone movie, but I guess we can't really give the movie credit for that, though, since it's based on a book. But I'm going to give it credit anyway, because we're talking about the movie.
Well, I'm going to be that guy that says the book is infinitely better. And so I can't separate the two things. I remember.
Really?
Yeah. I read the book when it first came out in 2008. It was recommended by, here's a blast from the past, Corey. Vivian Jennings was the one who recommended this book.
Vivian Jennings.
Yep. She's like, have you heard about this new book? And I had not, but I checked it out immediately and loved it.
Have you heard about this new book? It's about child murder.
It is. It's about child murder. It's fantastic. And teaching middle school, sometimes, It's nice to think about. I'm just saying.
Okay,
Anakin Skywalker has entered the chat.
I do love Revenge of the Sith. I have a couple of gripes about this movie. I like it in general, but I really miss the first person aspect of the book. And especially when you've seen that a much worse movie, Twilight, uses first person narration. I think this movie would have worked much better for me that way, because the paranoia that Katniss feels throughout the book is really neutered, I think, in this film. When you go to, like, here's the control room, here's Seneca Crane pulling all the strings, where she has to interpret that in the book and has no idea what's happening. There's this, and as a reader, you don't have any idea what's happening either. So I miss that a lot. I don't like the commentary.
On that just real quick. Sorry.
Jump in.
So sometimes when I watch these movies, I have to think, okay, like, in what atmosphere did they come out in? Like, what was the atmosphere of 2012? And you mentioned Twilight. Like, this is a post-Twilight movie. And
True.
I think that they saw that these young adult novels are doing well in movie form. But I wonder if they wanted to differentiate themselves from Twilight a little bit by not doing the voiceover. Not doing the narration.
Yeah.
Because I feel like Twilight got a lot of flack for being too dramatic. But also, I feel like Jennifer Lawrence's Katniss sells a lot of that. Obviously not to the same level that a voiceover or maybe the book does, but she just does like a fantastic job of like creating that tension and paranoia throughout. Like, she is not a happy person in this at all. She's stressed out.
Yeah.
No, yeah, and I would agree with that. I would have liked to have seen her given the choice to convey that even more. You know, it's fine. I think that all in all, it's a pretty good adaptation of what I think is a really great book. I mean, I remember when I first saw this movie, like, I had such a bad taste in my mouth because it didn't do things I wanted it to do. And that's partly my fault because I had expectations. And so I immediately reread the book just to kind of get, oh yeah, this is why I really like this book. And we're actually teaching that book right now. So that's kind of fun to be kind of re-experiencing that. And, oh yeah, that's the things that I really like about this book that I don't necessarily like about the movie. But you know, it's always a tough thing to do when you're making an adaptation, to try and how do you make a movie that appeals to both readers of the book and first time viewers who have no idea what this universe is about. And so there's going to be compromises that you have to do, and nobody's going to be happy with 100% of it. But yeah, so it's fine.
I'm also going to choose to take issue with this because if I recall, you do not like the voiceover and narration in Blade Runner. Yet you want it in this.
You're in the corner.
No, and see, that's fine because that movie does a great job of showing instead of telling, where this movie does a lot of telling. Like, oh, are those tracker jackers? Let's talk about what a tracker jacker is. And it does this
Stanley
and that.
Tucci. I could hear his voice when you said that.
And I'm just like, you know what? You don't have to do any of that. You just go, hey, those are bees. Bees are bad. We all know that. Look at these people writhing on the ground.
Worked for me, Craig.
Nah, you didn't need
that part was beautiful.
Yeah.
Because you know why that part was so wonderful? One, it's Stanley Tucci, which, by the way, this is finally, of all the movies I've ever seen him in, this one is his perfect role. He is absolutely stellar. He's just him being him in this. But at that scene, it's the entertainment value of the show and American Idol and contestants and the audience is watching. Oh, tracker jackers, let's bring that up for our audience, and making it an entertainment value, a gladiator combat that everybody's bloodthirsty for. And that was the part that I was like, yes, this nailed it right there.
Hate it.
Yeah, I'm gonna feed off.
I'll tell you, there's another thing too. I'm gonna push back on that again because when she actually has the when she's hallucinating, like, he shows up again and talks about that stuff, and that I don't mind because that's her interpreting it. And you could have just done that instead of having Flickerman and Templesmith talking. You didn't need that. Because they did it twice.
No, I
come on. Your audience is smarter than that. Don't talk down to them.
Well,
oh
man.
Okay, because here's why I like it. Can I just? I like it because I wanted more world building in this movie. I wanted to see the citizens of the Capitol more and their lifestyle. Like, are they actually into watching the Hunger Games? Show me the interest in that in the same way that we are into watching American Idol. Not me personally, I think it's trash, but
America's Got Talent. Yeah,
no, I don't
the way
like
we watch those,
stuff.
but the way we watch those reality shows and people get together and the finale.
See, you can show that though. Show the audience watching, which they do a little bit. They show like
I want more of that.
They show her mom doing it. You can do that, but don't talk down to your audience.
It really is a Running Man style with Schwarzenegger of what's his name, Killian, and Running Man in the audience watching and following along is how they feel with that Tracker Jacker scene. I could see where you struggle with that one. I could.
It's just
I don't agree, but I can see why you would.
It's just done so much better in the book. It just really is. And you don't even have to do voiceover there. You can just go like, "Oh my gosh, are those Tracker Jackers? I'm in trouble." Like it doesn't have to be long. It's bees. We know bees are bad. And then
but bees are different type of bees. These aren't just regular bees.
They also convey that, but they also show you the hallucinations, and you don't need to go, "Hey, she is now currently hallucinating." I can see that she is. That's my problem.
As one of those stupid audience members, I appreciated it.
All right. So here's my thing. I realized what I was trying to say in the opening monologue about the plot, and I realized I was a little late to the party here. Sorry.
Okay, that's okay.
The thing that I like about this movie, because I don't like all of the movie, I feel it drags on, and I know there's time periods that are passing that I don't realize. I don't think they convey it as well because this isn't done overnight. I mean, how long's this fight take in the book?
I mean, it's probably weeks, couple weeks. I mean, from the reaping to the end, it's definitely weeks.
I feel like that's one of the issues is it doesn't convey the passage of time super well.
Yeah.
Sure. Like throughout the whole series or trilogy.
Yeah, you get that much more in the book. But
the depth of these dystopian future movies that I think is good. And I think this is where Hunger Games nails this. There's good people and there's desensitized people. Okay.
Yep.
I don't think all the people who were in the reaping were bad people or evil people, but they are desensitized. Cato is the one that you look at where he's like, I'm just ready to go. And he's the favorite to win. Right. And so they're all desensitized to this way of life, and they're both forced into this corner to go survive and to fight and battle. And the tale of Hunger Games is that eventually one of those groups or both of those groups is going to turn and rise up against the true evil that's putting them in there. And I think that was where the rest of the series goes. That's where Katniss goes and starts to develop a hate, not for the people, but for the system that's putting her there. And I feel like that part right now is so relevant to our world that we're living in right now, where we have good people and we have desensitized people. And in the end, everybody's fighting and there's people pulling strings, making things happen along the way and pitting us against each other. And so rather than fighting against ultimate evils, we're kind of desensitized and forced to do this. And we're battling each other when we really don't need to. It's not necessary. It's a terrible situation that we're always battling these. And it's not just this, but this type of mentality. And so I think that's the part where I was like, okay, Hunger Games has an actual deeper story than just I go in and I fight the battle and I win.
Yeah, you get into the Catching Fire and Mockingjay. I think she fleshes those. Suzanne Collins fleshes those themes out really, really well, and it does for I think a much more interesting story than hey, we're just going to do it again, which
just
is
a dystopian future movie, like
or we're just going to go. We're going
to
to have to just fight through the games again. No, there is a larger, bigger thing.
Well, and I think that's what the first movie did. The first movie did, okay, this is the world we live in. This is the stakes.
Yeah.
This is the game. This is showing the true, like, I guess, barbarity, is that a word, of the society. And then 2 and 3, it's like, okay, now we're going to show how we're going to take down this political regime.
Yeah.
There is a lot of this movie that I do like. And that is definitely one of the things. I did want to mention just real fast before we get into cinematography that, strangely enough, this is our third straight movie with an opening crawl for exposition. I don't know how we stumbled upon that, but yeah.
Stats don't lie, gentlemen.
I guess it goes back to the world building thing. Like there's a lot to unpack from this and Highlander and Blade Runner.
Well, and I think that's my biggest complaint to the movie is I wanted more world building. Like there's a whole political system there that doesn't get explored all that much. Like we get little clips here and there.
The new one will do that. The snakes and
have you guys read
what's the next
the
one
Ballad
called?
of Songbirds? The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. Have you guys read the book?
The rise of snow, basically, right? So this will go into that world building.
It is. I think I think it absolutely does that. And I think what's fascinating about this, just minor sidebar before we get into this movie, is that first off, Hunger Games, the trilogy of books was a first person narrative, which I loved. The prequel, Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, is a third person, so it's narrators outside of the story, telling Snow's origin essentially. And without giving away too much, you don't hate him. He becomes sympathetic, which is really interesting because she also doesn't shy away from the fact that he does a lot of very, very bad things. But he's a fascinating enough character that you are invested. He is definitely the protagonist of that one. And it does give you a lot of background, a lot of why he is the way he is. And watching this movie too, when he talks about, there's a conversation, I think I'll probably mention it later, but that was a good time too. Talks to Seneca Crane about, have you been out to the districts? And he's like, well, no. He's like, well, I have. And he talks a little bit about some of the things he's picked up. He kind of hints at the past of why he has these feelings and why he has this knowledge. And those things are explored in that book. So, and hopefully in the movie, I'm hoping so.
Now that's the fan theory about him going out to those other districts that I agree with that makes this movie so much better, is that Snow uses the reaping and all of this as a propaganda tool. The Hunger Games is a propaganda tool for everybody staying in line. And it's a way that he assesses every district's insurgency or capabilities to become rebellious. So he pulls a random selection from each one, and then he gives them a small amount of time to train. And then he gives them whatever kind of weapons you want, which is what a rebellious uprising is going to do. Can you become a soldier in a matter of weeks? And then you go into this battle. And then what does it look like for a truly desperate person who joins this rebel militia, goes in, fights, does all this. And then you look and say, oh my gosh, that person is dangerous. This district is dangerous. Those are the kind of people that live there. And so it's a propaganda tool that he's using for his own power. And when I hear that, I'm like, this movie makes so much more sense. And why you see Katniss really hate him and why he says hope is terrible. And he tells the guy, do not to give them hope. Like, take away
just a little bit.
You need it. You got to control it.
Yeah.
Every spark.
All right. Well, let's dive into the cinematic aspects, starting with cinematography. So composition, color, camera work. You guys can just jump in whenever. What stood out to you?
All right, I'm gonna take the easy one. Can I do that?
Yeah, of course.
I'm gonna steal it before someone else does. Yep. Each of the districts has their own distinct style. It's almost like they just had a filter there on the camera. Capital is very bright and extravagant, almost like distractingly so. I think that's the point. And then district, which one's Katniss? 12?
12, yeah.
Just everyone's obviously very gray and like brown and covered in soot, and it's just dirty, like browns and grays everywhere, even in the victor's village, like, which is supposed to be a class above, and even that is kind of run down. And as we like do snapshots from the other districts, which I wish they did more of, you kind of see the same thing. Like, they all have their own distinct styles and colors and just a very clear mood every single time. And I thought, if you want to show and not tell, like, that's a very, very quick way to do that.
Katniss, you're right. Katniss's District 12 was very frontier west feeling. Not a lot of electricity.
It's Appalachia.
Yeah, it was definitely quite different.
That's literally where it is in the book, so it makes sense.
But some of the wood and doors and handles and everything, and were very intricate that I thought but they were the kinds of things that people used and made and took care of and repaired, not mahogany wood coming in from.
It's almost like early 19th century, like frontiersman type thing.
Absolutely.
Whereas the capital is very not incredibly futuristic, but clearly they have a little bit better technology and things like
that. The colors were very muted. The people were very no makeup, very plain, fixed their hair, not a lot of fancy.
And then it was in 12. Yeah.
And then it's contrasted with Millie's absorbent, luxurious
Effie
absolute-
Trinket, yeah.
or Effie, yeah.
Yeah.
Over the top style where she comes in there, and I'm just, it's so disgusting to me to see how would you even stand there in front of these people realizing what's going on. It just is, oh my gosh, District Capital is so disgustingly over the top.
It
With
goes to
gluttony
show like
and Rome
to-
kind of
to-
feeling.
like tone deaf too. They just
Yes.
are not aware.
100%.
And I will say this, I'm going to point this out because I'm not sure if everybody caught this. The camera work when Katniss's sister gets picked in the reaping.
Mm-hmm.
Katniss put a Mockingjay pin on her, and she's the only one who had that pin. Was she picked, or was she picked because of that? Because of that, like in my head, it makes sense. Snow's watching this, and everybody's watching this reaping, right? And I mean, she's the only one who gets picked, and she's the only one who has this pin, and then Katniss has to step in and take her spot, which I thought was kind of very intriguing. Nobody else is wearing a pin. Nobody else is wearing a button, and her number's the one that gets called. And so, and they make a point to show Effie, what's her name? Effie again?
Effie Trinket.
Effie grabbing in the thing and then reaches back and grabs something, like maybe that was this is where you grab from. And I don't know, in a propaganda move, that would make sense. It would make sense to say, this is what you do. And it's leaning a little bit of a squashing rebellion type thing. It would make sense in a dystopian future. You would do that.
I know they mentioned some of the significance of the Mockingjay, but I don't know, Craig. Maybe you can tell us more. Maybe the books go into it more.
Yeah, no, the books absolutely go into it more. This is something we covered, I think, last week. Where, so one of the many things that the Capitol does is create hybrid animals. They're called mutations in the book, and one of them was something called a jabberjay. And the idea behind the jabberjay was that it would go. Is basically a spy. It was basically like a recording, like an organic recording device, and would go into supposed rebel camps and then would listen and essentially record and then fly back to the Capitol and say all the things that were happening. And then at some point, the rebels catch on to this and they start feeding bad information or whatever. But the jabberjays are still out there, and then they mate with mockingbirds and they create the Mockingjay hybrid animal. And so it's actually kind of a symbol of failure for the Capitol that this creature even exists.
Oh.
So
you know what he just did there, Justin? He just explained that to us like Tracker Jackers. He just did it was his role to fill and say, oh, so what you're seeing here, audience, is
yeah, show don't tell, Craig.
Yes.
On,
well, that's how it goes in the book when Katniss explains it to us.
You know what? I'm not so dumb that I need it explained to me. I am. I didn't.
I missed.
Well, just in case, if you've not read the book, first off, read the book. It's amazing. But yeah, it's not. I don't think it's something that's explained very well in the movie. It might be I think it's just briefly hinted at.
It's from season 1. We missed it. Yeah.
I think I'm pretty sure in one of the movies they kind of just mention, "Oh, this is the sign of a rebellion." That's all I remember, really.
Yeah.
Speaking of camera work, I think the camera work in the opening stages before the battle starts is tremendous. You get kind of an over top view a little bit. You get some different shots right when they're all about to jump off their platform. You know what I mean? In the very beginning, right before the Hunger Games actually start. And they do it in a great way. I mean, I had anxiety watching that. Like, oh my gosh, which one would I go for first? Would I go for that pile? You know, would I get out there? Would I do all that? They do a great job of kind of building some of that intensity just with the game show aspect or aerial views or kind of the chaos of the camera. So I feel like they do a really good job bringing you in as a viewer and giving you a little bit of angst in that scenario in the beginning of this is going to be a bloodbath right here in the first 30 seconds. Mm-hmm. And then everybody's going to fan out and it's going to kind of become a lull. Like if you were watching this as a real show, you would sit there and say, I've got to watch the first 10 minutes. And then after that, it's going to slow down a bit.
Well, and they do it in such a way with like that countdown timer as well, that when that first kid, I think the first kid dies from like a javelin or something. Yeah. It is shocking. Oh my goodness. Yeah. They're going to they're going to do it.
Yeah.
Like they're not going to save you last minute. I remember the first time I saw this movie, I believe in theaters, that really took me back.
All right, I'm going in.
Going in.
You got something else, Corey?
Nope.
Okay, because I got a bunch. Let me start with we mentioned Effie and when she pulls the name. And one thing I noticed this time that I thought was interesting because there had been a lot of close-ups. There's a lot of close-ups of the Capitol people. That first interview with Seneca Crane and Caesar Flickerman, it's almost intimate close-ups. They're super close. And you have that with Effie too. When she's about ready to read, there's zooming in on her face and her wig and her outfit and things like that. But then when she pulls the card and is about to read Prim's name, it's a super wide shot with her really far back away from the crowd. And I thought immediately, like you guys mentioned this too, like they're disconnected from the actual process and what's happening. It really just had her on the stage by herself, completely separate. And I thought, what an interesting choice where you've gone super close to now it's wide when it actually matters. When I'm selecting someone for death, it's not real to her at all. She's very separate from that. So
yes,
I thought that was a fascinating choice for that. I did want to point out too the flashback scenes. There's this very heavy bluish desaturated effect for that. There's also with the sound. There's no sound for that too. I thought that was a really clever way to let us know, hey, this is in a different time period, but it's also very important. And blue is obviously very sad most of the time. The shaky cam, though, is the biggest thing that I came away from this this film. The first time I saw it, I hated it. It drove me nuts because it felt like it was just random because it was most of District 12. I mean, it starts with that very, it's a steady shot of the interview, like I mentioned before. And then it goes to, there's this one opening shot of District 12 where there's no people. And it's just kind of like, hey, look, we're basically out in Frontierland. And then it's shaky cam all over the place. Like the camera is moving continually. And I think what you're supposed to get from that is that we're empathizing with the sense of unease that District 12, the inhabitants are feeling, because we're kind of off-put, like they're uncomfortable, so we're uncomfortable, or vice versa. And so that bugged me. But the thing that you guys mentioned, I think Corey, specifically you, about the cornucopia scene, or that, and Justin, with that first violent, outburst, that I thought was brilliant use of shaky cam, because this is a PG-13 movie, and the way that you get away with that, and this is the thing I always point out to my students too, is that you don't have to directly show what's happening. You can get away with these odd angles and the camera moving, and it's quick and flashing here, and it's just really disorienting. While like you feel like you're seeing a lot more death than you probably are, because the camera is moving everywhere. And so that I thought was a really brilliant choice. Whereas the first one was just like, I can kind of stretch a little bit to see where you're going, but that one just made sense.
Well, and I think in 2012, we were kind of coming off the extreme use of shaky cam. I'm looking at you, Born Identity movies.
Lord, there you go.
I love those movies, but a lot of shaky cam.
Yes, so much parkour.
And watching it, 10, 11 years later, we're not so inundated with the shaky cam, and I think we can appreciate it a little bit more and not just go, ugh, they did it again. Well,
I mean, Man of Steel's the next year too. That's a pretty heavy use of shaky cam at the beginning as well. So that makes sense.
Craig, I'm just kind of glancing through real quick as I see it. The shaky cam that I didn't even notice until you said that is as the games are beginning, the countdown and stuff, and they're zooming in on some of the weapons and things that are sitting there. The camera has a slight shake, just a subtle one. Usually when you say shaky cam, I'm thinking the violent shakes where I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't see what the heck's going on. But with this one, it's so small and subtle. It's the feeling of a cameraman who's filming for a reality show standing there, and it's got a little bit of movement in it. And then when it pans to the people who are in the control room, it's steady.
Yep.
It's a steady cam, and it's it's coming up the view. We're zooming in on them. We're zooming back. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so you get the feeling like, oh my gosh, this guy's in the field filming this, watching this death unfold in front of him and there's a little bit of adrenaline pumping, so you got just a small shake in your camera. That is quite astute. I never saw that, never paid attention to it, but you were spot on in what it's doing.
No, you caught it. I mean, it feels like it's Katniss's point of view. Like it's very
Yes.
immersive for us to be on that pad watching the countdown. The sound design is doing that for us too, and it is stressful. And
You know what can't do all that? A narration voiceover.
but you don't need it continually, Justin. That's my point.
I don't know why I'm picking on this. Like, I got no beef with narration voiceover. I feel like I need to be the anti-Craig sometimes.
There you go.
So
So along with that, I will also point out other point of view things, like when she is, she's hallucinating, like it's very first person, her kind of running through the jungle, that PETA comes up to her and whatnot. And it's very distorted and blurry after the tracker jacker stings. And I don't need you to tell me, oh, it looks like she got stung by a tracker jacker. She must now be seeing things weird. It shows us in a really effective way. And so it kind of felt to me like they were, I don't know, hedging their bets on some of the stuff. Like, you did a great job showing me. You don't also need to tell me. I think that's probably why it bugged me the most.
Yeah.
So, anything else for visuals before I move on?
No.
All right. So, sound effects, the soundtrack. Justin, you mentioned the score briefly. Voiceovers, anything?
I'm going to bring up the sound effects of the reaping in District 12 with Katniss, and how there is an overemphasis. There's periods of silence, and whoever the sound mixers were, you know how they always have to do them on stage, and so someone's walking, they got to get shoes on their hands, and they have to mimic those sound effects. Whoever did that was amazing, because there's an emphasis on footsteps, gravelly shoes as they're all walking out to line up for the reaping. There's a scene, the keepers, you hear the radio chatter blurring in the background, right? And then this is amazing, and this is the detail. Jennifer Lawrence, when they first show her walking out for the reaping, there's a bug that flies right by her. Did you catch this? Has any of you seen this? Oh my gosh, you got to go watch that scene again then. There's a bug that flies by her, and you hear the wings go right by the camera as it does. It has this little like chitter that bugs do that as it goes by. And I thought,
Nice.
the fact that you left that in, or made a sound mixer put that in with the gravelly shoes and everything that's going, is a detail to build that whole scene and to build that.
That sound guy is watching that scene and sees that bug fly by, and he just goes, "Oh, now I got to put this in. Dang it!"
Yeah, and maybe that's what it was, but it looked too. It was probably a tracker jacker, but it looked too. It looked too intentional to just have that. Like, maybe they CGI'd it. I don't know. And that sound keeper, probably whoever it was, probably did that. Worked like 10 hours to do it, to get it timed just right and do it just right. And then nobody's even going to notice this. And here I am. I noticed it.
You know.
Well done, sound guy. Well done.
There's a lot of sound guys. I just Googled it. I went to IMDb really fast, and there's a large one. Oh, the supervising color artist though is Gary Hecker, who I'm not surprised. Gary Hecker, he got his start on Empire Strikes Back and has done hundreds of movies. Odds are, if it's a movie that you like the sound design on, it's Gary Hecker. So,
yeah, Gary,
right,
well done.
I need everyone to tag all the sound guys from this movie,
so that we
can and just let them know we appreciate.
You
them.
got your due here, sir. You got your due here.
He did Into the Spider-Verse and Watchmen. I'll give you those two right there.
But then after she gets picked and she has like 3 minutes to talk to her family, you hear rustling of clothes, you hear footsteps, you hear different materials on the door as the door handles turn. There's so much intention to detail there. And the rest of the movie, it gets washed out with the violence and the intensity of the scenes, that you don't pay attention to the little things, which they, by the way, later they do with Katniss's arrows and how they clink together. There's some very intentional things that you're normally not going to pay attention to or think about. And then you hear them, and it just adds to the scene and the reality of what we're looking at.
Nice. Justin.
I feel that way almost like you're saying. There's a lot of sound that adds to the intensity of the scene, but once the games start and you just have, I don't know, a solid 45 minutes of the games, there's just long bits of silence where all you hear are like twigs cracking in the background and like animal sounds, and like the intentional creation of silence is unnerving for a lot of it. Like you don't know when something is going to happen and when she's going to have to start running for her life. Like, that is just how would you even sleep in that situation?
Yeah.
Like the movie slows down quite a bit, I feel like, before the games, and then once they get into the games, it's like, all right, all hands on deck. Let's pump up the tension.
Yeah, that's a really nice pull. I want to point out that how good a pull that is, Justin, because in the book it's a little bit more expressly shown, whereas in the movie we think, oh, she's just in a forest. They put her in a forest. It's like, no, this is a completely artificial environment. They're inside a dome, and so they can manipulate that any way they want to. And so there's
since we're talking about that. And back to my complaint about world building, I feel like they didn't make it very clear, and maybe they did, and I'm just a bad viewer, that it was an artificial environment until I feel like toward the middle to the end of the game, when they start playing with fire and pushing her more towards the center,
knocking the tree over and stuff.
Yeah, it just seemed like, okay, you're out in the forest, and we can manipulate the forest a little bit, but I feel like they should have spent more time being like, okay, this is an artificial environment. This is what we can and can't do. Give me the rules. I don't like undefined things in movies like that. I feel that way about some superhero movies where they don't clearly define the superhero's power. I want to know what they're capable of. I want to know what this arena is capable of, and I don't feel like it did that very much.
No, you just get glimpses of that, with the cameras up in the trees and stuff like that. The second movie, I don't want to put this one down in favor of the second movie, but the second movie does. It's a very clearly defined artificial environment, for instance.
And maybe they wanted that to be a surprise for the audience. Sure. I'm not sure, but
that's true. It could have been an intentional choice to kind of mask that and just kind of suck you into this is just a nice little forest.
But if we're supposed to see this from Katniss's perspective, Katniss knew it was an artificial
yes, she did.
Environment. So I feel like the audience should have known that as well. If she is a stand-in for the audience, that would have, I don't know. I felt hoodwinked.
Yeah.
11 years ago.
One of my favorite sounds of this movie is they start with that opening interview, and Seneca Crane is asked, Flickerman asks him, what defines your personal signature? And before he answers, you just hear Prim scream out of nowhere. I just love that there's just smash cut to her just screaming. That is Seneca Crane's signature, is that he's horrible. He kills people and he terrifies people. Just thought that was amazing. I also like when Katniss walks out for her interview. When her interview comes up for Flickerman, the sound gets really distorted, which kind of brings us into I love those. You're showing me auditorial in this case, how she's feeling. You also get that when the mines explode, when she shoots the bag of apples, explodes all of the career's food. Those things I love. I have to say, I think that, to kind of echo what you said, Justin, that the score is one of the absolute best things about this film.
Yeah.
I think it's really, really strong and elevates this film quite a bit. It's James Newton Howard, who has done countless films that you've heard of. Just going to take a look here real fast. So he's done over 100 plus films. He did The Fugitive, which I think is another very underrated score. He did Batman Begins and The Dark Knight with Hans Zimmer, and done all of Francis Lawrence's films pretty much, which continues throughout the rest of the series. But he has a couple of leitmotifs in this, which I'm always a big fan of pulling those out. There's, first off, you have what's called the Horn of Plenty, which is essentially the theme song for Pan Am. It's their national anthem, which was actually composed by Arcade Fire, the band Arcade Fire. But then James Newton Howard did a movie score version. So you get to hear that during, the first time you get to hear it is during kind of the propaganda speech at the beginning, right before they do the reaping. But you get the really big, heavy one during the parade with drums and all that stuff. And it's clearly propaganda. It's clearly meant to evoke, triumph of the will and it's there's some heavy fascist things going on with that. But that's powerful and very memorable, used multiple times. You also have, you have Katniss singing Deep in the Meadow a couple times, where she sings it to her sister after the nightmare, but also sings it to Rue. So you get that very clear parallel between the way that she views both of the younger girls. But I think my favorite one is it's called Tenuous Winners / Returning Home. which is just kind of slow, melancholy one. You hear this as Katniss salutes District 11 when Rue dies. And then the riots ensue right after that. A bunch of other times you hear it right before Peeta and Katniss eat the nightlock berries. And then also on the train ride home, it's that last kind of very slow, very emotive song, which then transitions into a song called Abraham's Daughter, which is another Arcade Fire song. So just a great use of the score. I think really elevates this above a lot of things like, not to rip on Twilight, but a lot of like YA adaptations around the same time. Like the score is legit in this for this film.
This is a safe place. We could rip on Twilight. That's totally fine.
Well, this true. This one also has a song by Taylor Swift on it called "Safe and Sound," which won a Grammy Award. So,
Taylor who?
For you kids.
What's her name?
She's
course.
this new girl. You might have heard of her. Justin's a big fan.
I've never heard of her.
Craig. Here's the thing.
Yes,
dear audience. Craig, who is a middle school teacher, and myself, who's a middle school teacher,
and myself.
And we're all middle school teachers.
Yes,
that would be
yes.
easier to say.
Yes.
But Craig has told many of his students that I am not a true Swiftie. And after they leave Craig's class, they make their way to my class and they just glare at me and they're like, "You're a fake Swiftie." Like, I don't even know you, tiny human. Get out of my face. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm kind of mad about that. And every time we bring up Taylor Swift, it just brings up like a
Taylor Swift
hatred. Stop.
Plays over the end credits. Safe and Sound won a Grammy. Taylor Swift and the Civil Wars. I do want to also mention there is voiceover. Very good voiceover, I think, by President Snow during the propaganda speech. Over that little video right before the reaping, where Effie I just love that.
I'm going to tell you this. You could not have picked
good.
a better President Snow.
We got to talk about that.
I know. We got to get
We will. I like Donald Sutherland in the role as well.
I think just actors in general. We got a lot to talk about.
Anything else on sound before we actually get to performance?
Hey, so I know that Craig always outdoes us in these moments.
Oh, stop.
So shut up, Craig. You know. I mean that with love. So
Yes.
I listened to the soundtrack nonstop on my way to work, on my way home from work, as I sat on the couch with my headphones, nonstop. And I'm like, I'm going to get Craig this time. I'm going to get it. And I got nothing. All those things you just said, Craig.
I'm telling you. It's like watching Kobe Bryant work, and then we are junior high B squad players. That's what that is.
I don't even think I'm like middle school on the playground over here.
Yeah.
in my continual hunt for partners for advertising, I will put in a plug for Soundhound, because when I hear a song that I think is interesting or one that I think I've heard before, I just put the Soundhound app on my phone and go, "Oh, it was this. Okay, cool. Where else was this be heard?" So
is that like Shazam?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, okay.
When you said in my continual hunt for partners, I thought you were going to fire us, Craig.
Yes.
Like on the spot.
Dang
guys,
it.
you heard it here first. These guys
let me just
don't
tell you,
know their sound.
You failed the audition. You're gone.
All of you are unqualified. That's what you're saying.
It was a good run. Thanks, guys.
All I'm saying is I'm using a tool. That's there. So
okay.
That's the thing that, like, for our audience too, like while you're listening, feel like that's interesting. Figure out what it is.
Yeah.
It just layers up your understanding and hopefully your appreciation of the film.
I think we should just have a new segment
up,
called Craig's segment, and he just talks about music while we sit quietly. Yeah.
Soundhound. This
stop trying.
Brought to you by Soundhound.
Thank
you, Soundhound.
Brought to you by Soundhound.
There you go. So yeah, performance.
Let me just tell you this. I'm throwing it out there. Steals a little bit of spotlight in the show. Woody Harrelson. His first meeting of him on the train, I think, is absolutely perfection. You could not have had a different actor play that part. He comes in, he's looking like the drunk. He is damaged, and he just flat out says it in the beginning when Peeta's like, "All right, aren't you supposed to help us?" kind of thing, and he's like, "Whoa, so eager." Yep. And then he talks about the other ones. The other ones took their time, waited. You're so eager. And then he says, "I know in my heart there's nothing I can do to save you." And at that moment, in the whole beginning, you're watching him come in, you're like, "Oh my gosh, this is who they're going to pin their hopes on, someone teaching them. Is this drunk?" And then you find out, no, he's not drunk. He's just so hurt that he's a survivor.
He's damaged.
he is so damaged, and his whole line of, I know in my heart there's nothing I can do to save you. You're done.
Yeah.
And I'm just sending you to your death, and I get a couple weeks with you before you die.
And that's why middle school teachers need to retire early.
I think so. I think so.
There's nothing I can do.
There's nothing.
Yeah.
But I saw a little bit of that killer instinct because PETA gets mad at him, jumps up to try and take the liquor from him, and he stops him
with his foot.
And has his foot up there on his chest. And it was a perfect moment of kind of that killer instinct and that reaction time are still there, even though I'm a drunkard. And it was just instinct that he did it. It wasn't, it was a little bit of it's like getting in close with someone who knows these wrestling moves and boxing moves to take you down. And they do it without even thinking about it. And so I thought it was brilliant. I loved it.
Yeah.
I love Woody Harrelson. Yeah.
So you threw out kind of a quote from there.
Yeah.
More or less. So Justin.
Oh, I was just going to continue to praise some of the acting.
Sure.
Jennifer Lawrence, I mentioned this earlier. She does a fantastic job. She looks so traumatized and so bewildered and so stressed out just the entire movie. Like just the weight of the world is on her shoulders. And she nails it. Like she does a great job. And if you look at that to some of her other movies, like she is a completely different person in this movie. And especially when she didn't have a whole lot of big titles under her belt at that point. Like this was kind of one of her big ones to start off with. It makes a lot of her co-stars, I feel like, almost fall short. And you see a lot of interaction with her and obviously Gail and PETA. And I tried to like observe Gail and PETA's acting, I guess Liam Hemsworth and Josh Hutcherson, almost in solitude because I didn't want to compare them to how great she is as an opposite to them. But I don't feel like those two did a great job. Like I think both of them, in my opinion, were miscast. Liam Hemsworth is he's too handsome. I don't believe that dude came from District 12. Nope. The gene pool in that area just could not have mixed to make that. And then PETA is almost the other way. Like he looks like there was some family gene pool going on there. I don't know how to put that politely. I don't like that.
It is Appalachia.
Well, it is Appalachia.
Yeah, I mean, there's only so many people there, but I don't feel like he's very like enigmatic. He doesn't like portray a lot of emotion, but not in a good way. Like just I can't read that guy throughout that entire movie. Every time he's on screen, I don't like it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't like him.
Yeah, he was not. When I saw who was cast, I was excited for Jennifer Lawrence. I think I think I'd seen her in at that point was First Class, X-Men First Class. She'd been in a couple other things before then, but that was like the biggest.
Was First Class before this? Really?
I think it was 2011.
Oh,
yeah.
Because she did both series simultaneously. But yeah, Josh Hutcherson, he's fine, but he's also shorter than her, and he just didn't strike me as PETA from the book. But I think that's part of it too, is that you're supposed to say, oh, this is kind of a love triangle, and she's obviously going to choose Gail if that becomes a thing. And I think that's kind of what you're working with. Where you overlook PETA. That's kind of the idea. But yeah, when they describe him as being really, really strong, like he can pick a 50-pound bag of flour and throw it over his head. Like, not that guy. Look at that guy. He can't do that.
Speaking of overlooking PETA, I love it how everyone's like, I have my special skills. I can shoot a bow. And this guy's like, well, I'm really good at swords. And PETA's like, I decorate cakes. I'm going to make myself a rock. Like, what the heck? That's what you got?
That's it.
Like, I'm hurt. I'm going to decorate myself as a rock and I'm going to lay there for a couple days. Like,
I didn't see him the first time he was laying there, though.
He frosts the cakes, man.
But how long did it take him to do that? Just to sit there?
And how could you stand on top and do it? I don't know.
And
suspension
what if he has
of
to
disbelief.
go to the bathroom? Like, does he
just go, man?
Hey,
it's the dumbest skill. It's dumb. I hate it. I hate PETA. I hate your stupid face. I hate it when it's decorated like a rock. I hate it when it's normal.
That part was a bit of a reach, wasn't it? That was
bit.
That just seems like lazy writing.
Easy there. We're gonna need to do that film soon. This summer, I think, or before the summer. Okay, so you stole one of my best ones, Corey. The thing about there's nothing I can do to save you. Love that.
Are we going quotes? Is that what we're doing?
Yeah, we're throwing out some quotes. I really do enjoy the Katniss "thank you for your consideration." That the way she very snarkily says that. This movie has a lot. This is the biggest thing I came up with was there is a lot of gallows humor and a lot of irony in the way that people talk.
Yes,
from the not the capital people so much, but any of the people from the other districts and the tributes. There's a very much an awareness of the shortness of their life and devil may care attitude. Like, what are they going to do to her? Like, she's going to die.
Yeah.
So. Yeah. I'm going to tell you this. Here we go. My quote, I'm going to throw it out there because I love wisdom in movies. Mm-hmm. And I think this movie has a lot of wisdom for our world. Just because, not because we're having Hunger Games, but that whole pitting good people versus who, and then people have to become vicious because they're forced into this corner. Gale Hawthorne talking to Katniss, and he says, what if they did? Just 1 year, what if everyone stopped watching? He's trying to say that the Hunger Games are bad. She says it won't happen. And then he says, what if no one watches, then they don't have a game? It's as simple as that. And she says nothing. And he's like, what? And she says nothing. And then he goes, fine, laugh at me. And she says, I'm not laughing at you. And I feel like in that moment, it's powerful because I looked at it as, I'm not laughing at you, but I'm laughing that you think that people would do that. People are too desensitized. They're too bloodthirsty. They're too hungry. And so I'm laughing for you that you can't see the reality of what we're forced to do here. And Gale's a little bit too hopeful and optimistic that he could, people would stop watching for a year. But that's our world. Our world, something goes viral, something goes out there, and people jump on it. And social media is disgusting and wicked for some of these people because it gives them this audience to do these terrible things and to say these terrible things. And it's like, but we all have this mentality like we should have with Gale. Like, what if just for 1 year people stopped doing that? How much better would things be? And we know it would be true, but we don't. And so I love that. I love the quotes like that. I love moments like that where they put just a little bit of wisdom in here. That it's not just a movie about these kids killing each other. There's a little bit of wisdom here and a little bit of setup and saying there's a payoff to this quote and to this wisdom.
That being said, please share our podcast on social media with your friends and family.
Yes. Social media is good for that.
As you were saying that, Corey, I was just thinking this is not a new thing. There's just so much negativity on social media right now. Right now, the biggest thing is the Schadenfreude. I just wanted to say that word about how the Marvels is not doing well at the box office. And I am trying to intentionally not talk about one way or the other on that. But it was like, if everybody just stopped being negative on social media, what would that be? What would that look like? Just for 1 year? Just for a day. What would that be like? There's just so much negativity for no reason at all. Just people just happy that other people are failing in all numbers of things. It's just I've fallen into that trap as well, but it's just if you just stand back and look at it kind of objectively, what the heck, man?
Yeah.
Why? Yeah. What is so wrong with you that you're I have to put somebody down?
Yep.
To make myself feel better. It's yeah. So, but I love that you brought that quote up, Corey. That's true. We're feeding into this system. Justin, did you have another quote that you wanted to throw out?
I did, because it breaks my heart. So President Snow, who I'll never say this line as good as him, but he says, "It is the things we love most that destroy us."
Mm-hmm.
And now, while that's very deep, I'm going to take it on a very surface level and direct this towards Corey. Corey, I look up to you, man. But every time you talk about how much you hate Blade Runner, it destroys me.
It destroys me.
It hurts me.
It hurts
deeply.
I'm so sorry.
It's the things we love most that destroy us. And you know what? I'm dying inside. Thanks, man. Another one from President Snow.
Yes.
Oh, look, they're holding hands. I want them dead. I love. He is fantastic. He does have a lot of really good one-liners, and I'm excited for the prequel movie to kind of see who he was, because you do get a lot of depth from him, and you can see that he is while he is a villain, he is logical. and he is, at least in his brain, he is doing what he thinks is right, which is keeping people in line so he can continue to feed them.
He's doing what works for him, for sure.
And he's
also that
calculating. He is calculating. He saw Katniss as a spark before anything else. The moment she shot that pig out of that apple and that guy comes in and talks to him about hope and get this spark under control, he recognized in that moment that is a problem. And he saw what that rebellion would come out of her, and he knew what he had to do.
Yeah.
And so I look at him as truly calculating and holding on to power, and just, everybody's out here. I'm playing chess because I know 15 moves ahead kind of thing.
Yeah.
What that looks
3D
like.
chess.
Well, and with
3D chess.
With that apple scene, and Craig, maybe you can give us some spoilers here. After she shoots the apple, she does like a little bow, and you see, I've seen that bow in the trailer several times for the new movie. Is there more significance to that bow, or is it just kind of like a mocking?
I think you're getting the look. You can see the look on Rachel Zegler's face, that new character, which we'll get to. Can't remember her name off the top of my head. It's driving me nuts. I'll have to look that up. It's definitely a look of defiance, right? Yeah, it's like my body language is saying curtsy, but my face is saying, like, you don't own me.
Yeah, I just didn't know if that had become a symbol for District 12 or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't know, because they are from the same district. Lucy Gray Baird is the name of that character. The new character. I also wanted to point out part of, I think it's a little bit later, but with Snow and Crane, it's the underdog conversation. I love this because you talk about like what Snow is about and reveals who he is. Well, he says to Seneca Crane, he says, "So you like an underdog?" And Seneca Crane says, "Everyone likes an underdog." And I love the way he just says, "I don't." Right there. And then there's a pause. And then this is really telling. And I think, especially after the prequel novel and movie, he says, "Have you ever been out there? 10, 11, 12? He says, "Not personally, no." He's like, "Well, I have." There are lots of underdogs, lots of coal too, which is what we want, right? Crops, minerals, things we need. There are lots of underdogs. And I think if you could see them, you would not root for them either.
Yes.
Because that's what he's about. Like, we are keeping these people in this place. I don't care about the underdog. Like, I'm at this position. I've clawed, and you get a little bit of that in this book, in Ballad of Songbirds Snakes. He has scratched and clawed his way to this place. And you get a little bit of that in the second and third book. He's not letting go of that easily. Yeah,
I believe it's the third movie where you first see like the blood kind of like come out of his mouth, where you're like,
the poison.
What is going on here?
Yep.
You get a little bit of that backstory, that how he crawled his way into power.
Yep. Fascinating character. For body language and facial expressions, just going to fly through a couple of things here. I really noticed this time the people in 12 had kind of very forced smiles and very shifty eyes as they're just getting ready for the reaping. The three-fingered salute is huge. The one that Katniss gives. Well, they give her first, right, when she volunteers, and then she does it when Rue dies.
If I ever have to like leave my wife for the evening and she's alone with the children, I'll walk out and give the three-finger salute.
I'm with you. I'm with you. May the odds ever be in your favor.
There you go. I love, speaking of, Jennifer Lawrence is just great in this movie. The 1,000-yard stare of anger she has when Peter professes his love for her on TV.
Yeah.
You can just see the wheels turning with that. So much you could talk about costumes. I mean, I don't even know how to even unpack that. So we've talked a little bit about the blue-gray of the District 12 people and utilitarian braids. I mean, it's out of their face, right?
Yeah.
But then everything in the Capitol is extreme. All the colors, all the facial hair, all
Capitol's
of the
disgusting.
Colors, everything. Just bizarre. Nothing is authentic about any of those people. Except for you get, Cinna is the one that is very minimal. Like, he's got a little bit of gold eyeliner and a little bit of piercings. But he's the only one, which is interesting because he's the stylist. Like, if you think there was anyone that would be extreme, it would be him, but he's the one that's not. Anything else you guys had for that one? We talked about the Mockingjay pin a little bit as a important
nope.
prop / costume thing. Okay. As far as
Seneca's beard, honorable mention. That thing is amazing.
it is amazing.
Yeah.
Love that
He's
thing.
not in the sequel.
Well, no.
He does die.
He went into the room
didn't see
with
him
got
die.
locked in.
You're
We saw
right.
him locked in a room with
He
Nightlock berries.
There was a window. He could have jumped out of there. And
No, it didn't
Those
matter.
those
he
could have
was
been
toast.
cranberries, Craig. You don't know.
those were. Listen, I mean,
You're-
So in
You're-
props, I had a bowl of Nightlock berries for Seneca Crane because
Nah,
of the Nightlock
raspberries.
berries. No,
No, they're like,
Raspberries.
that's
well
mentioned
done.
in the next book
Here are
/movie.
raspberries.
There you go.
No,
A
I
lot
like
of
to see the
on-location filming for this film in North Carolina, which is cool. What I thought was interesting was that the Justice Building, which is where the reaping happens, seems to be the only quote-unquote modern building that's made out of concrete. Everything else is wood?
CGI'd. Oh,
Yeah, just like shacks and
Yeah, so it's like there's a couple things where the Capitol itself is also very gray, which is interesting. Like most of the fashion and the people are all very colorful, but most of the architecture is just very flat gray concrete. So I thought what was interesting about the thing in District 12 was that I'm assuming the Capitol building was built with capital money, and so that's why it's the only kind of modern thing that's there, and that holds up. Along
would
with
make
the
sense.
fact that they also have those really fancy like TV holo projectors to watch the Hunger Games. Like everything, they're like we mentioned it before. It's like it looks like you're in the early or the late 1800s, except for stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's like no, because this is the Capitol paid for this.
Hmm.
So I thought those are interesting. Do you guys have anything for props, set decoration that you wanted to point out?
Just the luxuries of the Capitol that just drive me crazy. I mean, it's all perfectly played. Stanley Tucci and how goofy the people look. And I gotta admit, if you were pulled from the 1900s and looked at our world and social media and the things that are so popular and people do, you'd go, it would look exactly the same. Over the top, luxurious, just ridiculous amount of waste and fake chivalry. I don't know. It's just amazing. So, and I watch it and I get so mad at it. I'm just like, oh my gosh, this Capitol and Stanley Tucci's show and everybody's so fake and this is so propaganda. And are they going along with it or do they know? Anyway, it's just a good casting. It's a good set. It's a good prop that they all used.
that's why I want to know, because you're right, they do seem so fake, and I want to know, what do the citizens of the Capitol actually think about this? Are they staying in line just to keep their station as well? Like, do they know what's wrong, but they kind of choose to look the other way? Or
I very much think it's that.
are they just desensitized and they don't care, in the same way that we can go watch a movie and be like, desensitized, totally fine. Like Tom Cruise is
They're
going to kill
both
another
true.
guy.
Yeah.
I guess in a
But
sense,
I wanted to see more than that.
we're
I also wanted to
District-
see more
we're District 1.
Stanley Tucci's teeth. I think we could have seen more of those.
How? Just
No,
how?
I'm just.
Okay.
I love that. He's great.
Some other things I wanted to point out set decoration is when they get on the train, when Katniss and Peeta get on the train, did you guys notice how much blue is on there? Like the walls are blue, the chairs are blue. And in color theory, blue can mean tranquility or calmness. And so maybe this is a way to kind of subconsciously mellow out the tributes and relax them.
It also
it's
gets very quiet. Like the hustle bustle of the district, as compared to the train, is now just like a
Yeah.
void of sound.
Absolutely. I can't stand the control room though. Seneca Crane's control room.
Yeah.
I mean, I get why like they're doing the contrast between the it's out the rustic in the woods at the arena, and then the control room is this and more scenic controlled. But I just hate that because none of that was in the book, and it drives me nuts because I wanted to just imagine it instead of having it directly told me. So is what it is.
I thought the control room was fantastic. It looked like such a cool looking show and holographic and advanced, futuristic. I don't know. I thought it looked good.
Tell me more. I want to know more about the technology.
Those are called tracker jackers. Oh, anyway, you could track them. You could track the dogs. Everything.
All right. We're running a little bit long, so let's skip down to. We talked about characters. One thing I did want to point out was I do like Woody Harrelson as Haymitch, but I knew at one point it was rumored that Hugh Laurie, the guy that played House, was going to be up for that role, and I would have loved to have seen him play.
He
Haymitch.
could
I
have been
could see that.
great.
Yeah,
He could have been
love
great.
him and everything. And as much as I love Donald Sutherland as Coriolanus Snow, physically he's very different from his book counterpart, and so that he's great in the movie, and I can separate that. But I always envisioned somebody more like, I'm trying to remember
Mr.
his name.
Rogers.
Crispin Glover. I was thinking Crispin Glover.
Crispin Glover.
He was George
Back to the
McFly,
Future?
and then he played a bad guy in like the Charlie's Angels
He couldn't have pulled
movie.
it off.
I
No.
think he absolutely could have pulled it off. He's creepy and weird. He's also in the Alice in Wonderland movie. The Tim
Whoever
Burton
this
one.
is has to be able to sit on the other end of an ultimatum and kind of
He's a little
power,
guy. That's
like,
the thing.
sh-
Snow
like,
is
I'm
a
gonna-
little guy in the book.
like I'm
Donald
a
Sutherland's
snake
not.
right here. I know, but Donald
he kinda
Sutherland
looks
is
like
a
a snake.
snake in what
Ah,
he
yeah.
says, and
Oh,
His
Crispin
art, his
Glover.
comments,
I'm looking
and-
up pictures of him. Yeah.
although you
Right?
could have
creepy.
pulled it off with the
That
guy
nose
from
too, really.
Robert California guy. What's his name?
Oh,
Oh,
Spader. Well,
Yeah.
I'll take
Spader
Spader
could
anyway.
have been good.
Oh my gosh, yes, please. That would have
'Cause
made it amazing.
He's conniving. Like
That's
he
what
could
you
have. You see what I mean
I-
there? You see that
Yes.
character that he could have brought to it, where it would have been that we're in a negotiation here, but I already know I'm winning. Kind of
I love
comment
that.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's
it's
like
twisted.
James Spader, like a Rorschach test. It's like, where do
Oh.
you know him from? You're like The Office.
That's,
I'm like, I would go.
no, but I know him.
Blacklist,
He's in
I'd
the
go-
blacklist. That's what I was going to say. The
Yeah.
blacklist.
No, The Office is fine. It's just many other things. He's great. Age of Ultron, whatever. Yeah, Wes Bentley is as Seneca Crane. That's he's quite good. Anybody else we didn't mention? We've mentioned Stanley Tucci at length because he's fantastic. He is really good in this. Jack Quaid as Marvel, the guy that gets the guy that kills Rue, featured heavily now in The Boys. So,
Yes.
one of his early roles. Let's see. Moving down. Hero's Journey. This is one I like to talk about with the Hero's Journey quite a bit because I think it is a great example of the monomyth. If you go through all three books, really, you get all the way through there because you do have Katniss as this reluctant hero. She absolutely doesn't want to be there, but becomes this very important symbol ultimately. So you do need all three books or four movies to tell the whole journey. You get no spoiler. I don't want to spoil it if you haven't read the second book. You get Death of the Mentor and a bunch of other things where she really does undergo this metamorphosis and become this leader that she was picked to be, but was not ready for at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. We talked a lot about world building. That very much and all I have for that too was just it's a dystopian extension of our world. It is Panem is meant to be North America, like in an indeterminate time from now. Yeah. So final thoughts.
Go ahead. You want to go first, Justin?
nah, go for it.
All right. I'm going to say I like this movie. I think it's great. I think it's better when you start to watch the whole trilogy, 4 parts, and then you get into it. I think, like Justin said, getting a little bit of backstory and prequel here coming out soon. I think that's going to help build that world a little more and make you really root and find favorites in here that you go, oh my gosh, there's more to this than just the show and what's taking place. I think the key idea is that the Hunger Games is how violence is used to control people. They're using the violence same way Rome used the gladiator games to control people and to feed people's bloodthirstiness. President Snow is using these Hunger Games as a way to remind districts that they're helpless, but they're also feeding his constituents unceasing appetite for entertainment. And so amidst all this, I'm feeding you violence and entertainment. And in turn, I'm staying on my power and I'm growing my power and you're powerless without it. And so there's a lot of truth to this in what takes place where strings are being pulled. So there's a lot of underlying themes here that you can take from it. Depends on how you're going to look at it. But in the end, it is great. Jennifer Lawrence, I know this put her on the map, but I think she's a tremendous actress. And in this role, does a tremendous job. I think she absolutely nails this as Katniss Everdeen. So
No,
It's a great
first
movie.
action hero. So,
yeah.
How have we not mentioned that?
Oh, well, we just did.
Oh, okay,
I didn't
sorry.
see Alien or Terminator or
All right.
Terminator 2.
Yeah.
Okay.
For those of you that don't know, just Google Jennifer Lawrence, first action hero. You'll get it. You'll get it.
It's pretty funny.
Yeah.
Okay, Justin, final thoughts other than that.
Yeah. I think just overall it's a solid movie. I don't think we really had any huge criticisms. Like we all kind of agree on this one for the most part. It doesn't take a whole lot of leaps story wise or visually, cinematically, anything like that. Like it's pretty grounded. It doesn't break any. I'm going to say grounded, and it doesn't break new ground at any point. But we don't need every movie to try hard. Like it works for me. It's a movie I can go back and watch and enjoy over and over again. And every time I watch it, I feel like I get new themes out of it. I think especially as I get a little bit older, and I feel like as we get older, we tend to get more into politics and into the world. You start to see this movie as a reflection of maybe some stuff going on in the world, or what could happen, or what could go on in our world, and it gets a little bit scarier, I guess. But hey, those are great movies. That's great literature. It's a reflection of our world, and it's going to change as your perception changes. So, no, I think they did a great job overall with the film. No major critiques.
Nice. I would just say that it's a solid film, like you said, Justin. Good cast, high production values, and because of that, I think that, like you said, it's nothing earth shattering with it, but I think it's easily the best of the YA post apocalyptic adaptations. So it's much better than The Giver, Divergent, The Fifth Wave, Chaos Walking, Maze Runner, Mortal Engines, etc. It's by far and away the best of those. But my big question, and I don't want you guys to even answer, but I just want to kind of leave us with this, is does this film work, or book, does this story work as a warning against the kind of forces that could create such a world of inequality, survival, and resistance? Or is it just entertainment? Does it work? Is it a warning?
That's one for our readers to answer on Facebook. That's a great question to have a discussion about.
So I don't know the answer to that, but I'd be curious to know what our listeners and our Facebook group members think. So as we close, we just want to say thank you so much for listening. If you'd like to connect with us, you can find us on X and Facebook. Email us at readingbetweenreels@gmail.com, or use the SpeakPipe app on our website. If you enjoyed the show, please tell a friend and support us by writing a review on your favorite podcast catcher. One last thing, our next episode will be a review of Raiders of the Lost Ark with special guest Thomas Riddle. Send us an email or voicemail about your favorite moments from Raiders of the Lost Ark, and we'll share it on the next episode.